Welcome to all of the people out there who absolutely love and adore an autistic child and want to support them with their communication in the best way they can. And I got a question for you. Have you ever found yourself asking questions like, how was school? What did you do today? What happened at grandma's? Only to get either kind of like one word answers, no answer at all, or they just start talking about a favorite topic or a script or singing a song. It is one of the biggest frustrations I hear from parents, but also one of the biggest kind of heartbreaks and sadness and grieving process that parents go through as well, right? And if you're here, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. You know that your child has experienced so much throughout the day. You know they have thoughts, feelings, emotions, like things that they love. They have memories. So why can't they tell us them? Can my child tell me if something hurt them today at school, or if someone said something mean? Can they tell me if they want something or if they want something different? Can they tell me what present or gift they want for Christmas or their birthday? And the biggest takeaway I want you to have is communication is not just about having words. And a lot of literature, professionals, things you see on Facebook or Instagram, but also TV shows like Miss Rachel are pushing this agenda that learning words is going to be enough, that modeling words and language is going to be enough, but it often is not enough. And if you're here with me today, it probably hasn't been enough for your child because you are still seeking answers, because all of that modeling and repetition hasn't led to functional language and communication with them. So what is communication about? Communication is incredibly complex when you start breaking it down. It is a very complex brain process. And fundamentally, it is about firstly, turning language into a picture. So listening to something or reading something and being able to turn it almost into a mental movie. It's why we enjoy reading books. It's why I can ask you about recommendations from a vacation and you can tell me this restaurant, this beach, because you can visualize it and you can talk about it. And if you cannot picture something, it is so hard to talk about. I have other videos that dive into this so much more, so I urge you to watch them. Today, I'm going to share 4 habits that as a parent or someone who loves an autistic child, you should be building, because it will genuinely transform the conversations and the foundation they have for developing language and communication in your autistic child. And none of them involve logging onto Amazon and buying the latest flashcard, downloading another app, or just sitting at a table doing therapy. These are habits that I urge you to build into everyday life, because that is where the change is going to happen. All right, so let's dive into habit 1. The first thing is ask smaller questions, not bigger ones. So let's start with one of the biggest mistakes that every parent is guilty of, including me, even though I know better. We ask enormous questions without realizing how difficult they truly are to answer. How was school? What did you do today? Tell me about your weekend. These are actually huge questions to ask a child who is struggling with their communication, because how was your weekend? If we were to visualize the weekend, there is so much that happened. There is so much to talk about. The question is so unspecific that can be incredibly overwhelming. How was school? I can tell you this is like the number one question that parents want their child to answer, right? It's very difficult not knowing what's going on in your child's school day. How was school? School is like a vast world of answers and memories and emotions and things that has happened. So that question is actually such a big one. So they're having to search through an entire day, decide which memory you're asking about, picture that memory, organize it into language, then find the right words to tell it to you. That is a huge amount of cognitive work. So what you need to do is you need to shrink that search for them, shrink that cognitive load so they can be successful in answering that question for you. And I'm going to give a very, very broad example now that probably won't relate to your child because your child is going to be so unique, but I'm hoping you can understand what I'm talking about. So let's say you send them in with a packed lunch every day and you know you sent them in with sandwiches. Right? You know, they can say the word sandwiches, they can say juice, they can say everything that's in that box. So don't ask, what did you eat for lunch? Okay. That could be a very difficult question for them to answer if they're kind of at the single word, short sentence verbalization stage. What you'd want to do is say, I packed you a sandwich for lunch today. So immediately your child's brain only has one thing to recall and picture, and you're probably sending a sandwich more than once per week. It is something that is consistent and that they've seen a lot. Okay, so you're asking something that's very common as well. So then you're going to ask really specific questions about the sandwich. What color did you picture the bread? What shape was your sandwich today? What fillings did mummy put inside? Was the cheese yellow cheese or orange cheese? Okay, so very, very narrow recall questions that is encouraging your child to visualize this sandwich and then talk about it. Then you might kind of expand that out a little bit to see if you can get more information. Where should I picture you were sitting? Okay, classroom, dining hall, cafeteria. I don't know. Who were you sitting next to? Okay, so none of these questions are really testing memory or asking them to recall so much or independently pick something to talk about. They're helping your child to, first of all, build that detailed mental image, hold onto it, and then verbalize and talk with you about it. Because when children can picture things, they can then develop the skills to retrieve words that describe that picture. So when your child is holding onto a picture and practicing retrieving words that match that picture, you are explicitly strengthening their connection between the Wernicke's area of the brain and the Broca's area of the brain, which is so important for an autistic child to develop the connection between them. Parents might say, those things seem so easy. He's known his colors for a couple of years already. That is the point, right? We do not want to overwhelm our child who is already struggling with their communication. And we're not trying to teach them colors right now. What we're trying to do is teach your child's brain to connect that language and imagery together, because this foundation is what later on supports storytelling, conversation, comprehension, and independent communication. So let's talk about habit number 2. And this is something that parents consistently struggle with because no one talks about it. No one educates about it. No one supports this very, very particular skill. And parents are built to innately do this. And as I'm talking about this, it will be clicking into place because you will innately be responding to what your child needs and what your child is showing you that they need throughout the day, right? You see your child and they're looking a certain way. You think, oh, they need a cuddle right now. You see them out and they're running around. You think they're going to need water very soon. They're going to be hot and thirsty, right? As a parent, you are doing this all of the time. You're anticipating where your child is going to be next and what you need to do for them. Very, very natural. And I'm sure you are so good at this, bringing up and raising an autistic child. It is something that is always in the forefront of your mind. What is very hard to do is respond to what they need communication wise. Because here it's not just about what you are doing innately, what kind of your parent instincts are telling you. You need knowledge and skills to know how to navigate this. And I'm sure many of you walk away from an interaction with your child feeling like, I could have done that better. I didn't understand them. They ended up getting frustrated. Where did that go wrong? Where did that kind of take a left turn? And I don't know what to do. I don't know how to best communicate with them. This is a really normal feeling. There is not a guidebook of how to raise an autistic child. Firstly, because no one's written one, but I mean, maybe they have, I don't know. But secondly, everyone would need their own handbook, how to raise your autistic child, because they're all going to be so different and unique in their own beautiful way. So what habit you need to form as a parent is responding to their response. What you might be doing is just repeating that same question or repeating that same direction. Mary, go and put your shoes on. Mary, go and put your shoes on. Mary, I've asked you so many times, go and put your shoes on. Mary, stop looking at the TV, go and put your shoes on, right? That broken record that we all feel, okay? So what we need to do when we're responding to the response is think about it and put ourselves in our child's shoes, because repeating the same thing over and over and over again, whether it's a question or a direction, is not going to reduce the thinking required. It's simply asking your child to solve that same problem again and again and again. And like I've spoken with you, process is really complicated. So at any point, they could be having difficulties. And that is why in this moment, they're not able to respond to you, even though they might have responded before, even though they've been able to do it since 2 years ago. Doesn't matter. It is all about in the moment, back and forth, responding to their needs, which are going to change throughout the day. So let's think about it as though you're like building a staircase. You're going to start maybe with your original direction. Okay, so maybe it is, right, Mary, we're leaving for school. I need you to put your shoes on and I need you to meet me by the car. So maybe that is too hard. Your original direction is too hard for Mary to process in that moment, even though you know she can do it. So what you want to do is you want to make it smaller. As you're going up that staircase, you're going to make it a little bit smaller. You're going to give a little less information. So maybe it's, Mary, look at mommy. I want you to put your shoes on. Okay, so you've given a little bit less information. You've also got Mary's attention. It might still be too hard. You're not going to continue repeating the direction. What you might do is you might say, okay, Mary, look at mommy. Are you going to put your shoes or your pillow on your feet? Okay, you could say something silly. Or you say, Mary, I want you to put your shoes on. What color shoes do you picture you have? Pink or yellow? Or you might say, Mary, do you want to wear your white trainers today or your pink sandals? So you're giving her those options for her just to choose. And then if she's still struggling, I'm afraid you are just going to have to model it and do it with her. And try to treat this as this is hard for her. This is too hard for her to do right now by herself. I'm going to model this with the goal of this becoming easier. Learning doesn't happen because a child eventually guesses correctly or just goes through a process not really knowing what they're supposed to be doing. It's going to happen because we've supported that thinking and that process, that success becomes possible because the processes are building and becoming stronger in their brain. And this is one of the biggest mindset shifts I'd love every parent to make. All right, let's talk about number 3. And this is a really, really big one. And it's my favorite one. And it's one that parents don't even think about. Professionals don't even think about it as well. nor do kind of like apps or programs or TV shows. Everything therapy-wise is all about getting your child to talk about something that is right in front of their face. Okay, let's talk about this thing going up, 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 up. Let's talk about this picture. Let's talk about this cartoon that you've just watched. This fits into every day really, really well. And it is such a simple mindset shift for you to make. Okay. So I want you to stop talking about what is right in front of your autistic child. The toy, the picture, the iPad, the food, the dog, right? They're going to get to a point where they can just talk about what is in front of them. However, think about conversations. Are we talking about what is in front of our face? Rarely, rarely, rarely do we do that. Communication is about talking about things that we can't visually see. We are recalling what they look like in our mind. So for you to develop your child's innate communication skills, you need to help them talk about things that they cannot see. Okay, so stop with the flashcards and them just labeling things in a book. That's only going to get them so far, and it's not going to build innate communication. You need to be hiding those flashcards, covering up the book, talking about activities and experiences you've done with your child, and having them use their imagery portions of the brain to build their language from. So start talking about your favorite swing at the playground. Start talking about your dog that might be in a different room, or a pet that a family member has. Start talking about their favorite toy that is hidden under the blanket, or a cartoon character that they love a lot, that they see all the time, but is not on in any screen near them when you're having this conversation. Okay, so it could go like, oh, let's talk about Mario. Oh, what color do you picture Mario's hat? Ooh, what do you picture Mario wears? Can you tell me a little bit about what you see on Mario's face? So you're talking about this character, and you're really talking about the imagery and what the character looks like. And you're going to be utilizing the same questioning that I've spoken about before, where you start with broad and harder questions, and then you make it easier. So doing this even for 5 minutes every day is developing that skill and those brain processes behind conversation. This is what leads to a child being able to tell a story or answer a question like, how was school, in much greater detail, and not just describing their sandwich. It's a skill behind answering questions and having a back and forth. And it is one of the most important foundations of independent communication. All right, so let's look at the last habit. This is habit number 4. And this one is just about changing how you interact as a family. Okay, I want you to sit here for a minute and just think about how many questions your child hears every day from you, from school, from friends, from like everyone. What is this? What color? How many? Who's that? Why did he do that? Question after question after question. Without meaning to, home can sometimes start to feel like school, start to feel like test, start to feel like there's like a wrong way to answer and a right way to answer. And this can lead down some challenging paths. And also, you're not modeling communication to them, right? When was the last time you had a conversation with someone and you were like, oh, what color is this? Or how many bananas are in the bowl? It's not how we talk. It's not how we communicate, nor is it particularly fun to talk about things like that. So instead, you're going to have communication with your child that is more similar to a conversation. So wonder together. I'm picturing that your sandwich was cut into triangles. Or be silly. Ooh, my sandwich today was cut up like Spider-Man. How was your sandwich cut up? Ooh, I don't know. Was my cheese crunchy or soft? Or I'm not sure what to picture. Did you play with a football today at school, or did you build a spaceship? And even if your child answers wrong, okay, I built a spaceship. So what? Imagine that spaceship with them. Wow. Was that a big spaceship or a small spaceship? Should I picture it was round at the top or pointy at the top? how fast did it go? Okay, so you're modeling language, you're modeling imagery, and you're showing your child how conversations actually work, even if at this point they're not doing much of the talking. Because in real life, we're not quizzing each other. We're not asking a bunch of questions about insignificant things. You're sharing ideas, you're building pictures together, you're being silly, you're imagining and dreaming of things, you're telling stories, you're connecting, and that is what you want communication to become. So don't worry about asking more questions. Focus on asking better ones. 3 really good questions are better than 10 questions that weren't fully thought out. Make them smaller and more specific. Don't ask these big, broad questions. Pick something like a sandwich and drill down. Support your child's thinking. Talk about things that they can't see, that they have to use their imagery for. And remember, your goal isn't to discover what your child already knows or prove that they still know something that they knew before. Your goal is to help them develop thinking that makes communication possible. And those tiny shifts that you make in the day-to-day make monumental leaps down the road when it comes to communication. So if you've enjoyed this video and it's been helpful, I would really love to know which habit you're going to try first and how I can support you more with that. Who knows, I might do a video just for you. And if this way of thinking about communication and interacting with your child on a day-to-day is completely new for you and you haven't heard about it before, I strongly encourage you to subscribe. This is pretty much all I speak about, and it is very, very niche and specific. And I'm always sharing practical strategies you can do at home to help your autistic child move from single words, sentences, scripts to more meaningful communication and conversation. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.